Hey, what's up everybody? This is Wade from Unparalleled Universe. I just wanted to let you know about the Kickstarter that I've launched for the first ever 1/12 scale Odious figure. Odious is a character that I've created and I'm trying to make a figure of him via Kickstarter, so be sure to check that out. Odious 1/12 scale action figure on Kickstarter. Thank you very much. Peace.
Hey guys, MCU Collector here with another figure review. Next up is the Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons Golden Archive Honor Among Thieves OWLBEAR / Doric. Right? If you've seen the movie, you know that the druid in the movie Doric, she transforms herself into various different animals, insects, or whatever. One of them was this owlbear. She was in a couple of scenes that way, and pretty awesome in both those scenes, just tearing fools up in those fight scenes, and was pretty awesome. I got this figure from Amazon a few weeks ago, and I'm just now getting around to reviewing it. I'm kind of bored on the Saturday morning. I'm waiting for some G.I. Joe figures to arrive, so I figured why not get this figure out here for people to check out. It's a pretty cool figure. It's a little bit bigger than I had thought it was going to be. The articulation is a little bit different than what I was expecting as well. It's a little bit more hindered than I would have preferred, but still really cool. I thought this was going to be like a white owl bear figure, but it is like a slight off-white eggshell beige, not really beige, but it's not as white as I would have thought based off of like the images, like the promo images, and then the image here like on the front. It like looks white, but it is not a true white figure. Looking at the box, we get that artwork there. We can see the figure in a couple of different poses. It can stand up and they can kind of go down like a bear there. Here we have a look at it. And then, of course, it does come with extra feet. Replaceable feet or arm? Hands? Feet? Hands? Feet? Would they be feet? Would they be hands? These are so you can get it into the crouching bear pose. So it then becomes feet at that point. The hands now and then feet later, I guess. I'm not really sure. On the side of the box it says a shape-shifting tiefling druid who makes her home with the elves of the forest. Doric fights to protect the natural world from those who would destroy it. But we'll get that box out of the way. There was some assembly required. Does it come apart? I don't know. I took pictures and had posted it on Instagram at the time, but the whole torso piece was in two different pieces. So like this front piece and this back piece were separated out so you could see the insides, which was weird. And then, yeah. But anyway, there is the Doric figure, so we'll just kind of ease into it. So the legs get really good articulation kind of going front because you want to be able to get the owl bear into like that bear crouching pose, right? So we switch out these hands that switch out very easily, as you can see. We just port these in, and boom, there is the bear, the owl bear in kind of the bear pose. So then the head gets all kinds of range of motion, as you can see. It's broken down in a couple of different pieces. You have the head, the neck, so you can get the bear pose like so and look straight on out when in the bear pose, which is really cool. There is that there. You can bend those elbows and stuff like that. But as cool as that is, I do really like kind of the standing pose that this thing is able to do. But notice again, the feet really wouldn't make sense when you're kind of displaying the owlbear Doric in this sense. One thing though that is tricky is it's harder like when she's this way to get her face to look straight on out. As you can see, she's kind of like crouching forward to be able to do that, and really you would have to really bend the knees and kind of get those legs out like so to counterbalance, because it is a very heavy figure. Like, because the torso, you know, if it was a hollow torso, I don't know if it would have, if that would make a difference, but because the torso really isn't hollow, it's very top heavy, so you have to get the legs like this to really get Doric to stand up straight. Straight to the point where Doric is looking straight out. Because if you look there, if the torso is kind of straight, Doric just will not look out. Like, that neck won't come down any further than that, unfortunately. So that's why you got to kind of get that torso kind of leaned forward to get Doric to look straight on out. And I think that's kind of the biggest gripe of the figure. I mean, I'm sure this is fine, but standing up to make it taller would have been, you know, really cool, but she just at that point cannot look straight, so that's just kind of tricky. But let's go ahead and get in for a closer look so you can see the details in the face and then kind of throughout the body. Okay, so here is an up-close look at the Doric figure. So if you look at the eyes, it does use a digital print, and it's much larger than we would typically see with Hasbro figures, the way the eyes are. And the eyes look really good. You see some blue, some purple, some greens. It's kind of got like the dot matrix printing color to it, but it looks really good. And then you could just see the tongue in there, black beak. And then we kind of get some spots across the feathers? I don't know which one it would be. These are clearly feathers along here on the arms, but then... Okay, so the arms are feathers. The body is feathers. The head looks like fur, I guess. Maybe that's the difference. Although the hands, and I got the feet ones on there, but the hands look like a fur, not a feather. The feet look like fur, not feather. And then it kind of goes from feather to fur down there at the ankles, I guess. So mostly feather, but some fur. So fur on the face, fur on the hands, the feet, and the ankles. But the rest, I guess, would be feathers. And I probably made way too big a deal about that. But anyway, looking at the arms, as you can see there, you know, you kind of get some color pattern, some browns and some blacks, grays in there. The talons or claws are painted black. The bottom of the feet are paws. I guess that's probably more accurate, right? The paws are black, and there is some nice sculpted texture actually into the paws, the curves of that skin. So that looks good. The back of the figure, we do get a lot of paint on the back of the figure, because typically with Hasbro we wouldn't get that, but because when you have the bear and the owlbear in a bear stance, you would see the back, so they would have to do that. There is this separate piece here that's like glued on of some feathers, just because it comes down further than that hard sculpt, so it's like a separate piece that's like glued in there. But yeah, there is the owlbear. Looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. There is a different version that is the lore owlbear, so it's just kind of like the Dungeons and Dragons lore and not something that's actually from the movie. This is specifically from the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. But now let's go ahead, zoom out, and take a look at the articulation. Okay, so let's try our best to kind of get through the articulation. So the neck can go from that straight on up pose, and the head would look straight on up to down that much there. The head itself is on a dumbbell joint, so it doesn't have a hinge there, but that neck is a full-on hinge piece in there. So just a heads up on that. You don't get you can get some swivel. It's just like almost like a floating plastic piece in there. So this is the portion that really has that hinge going on there. So it does move a little bit, so just a heads up on that. And then the head, as you can see how it goes onto that ball peg there. Maybe if it goes straight, maybe I'm just not doing that head really the right way. I guess oh, you know what? Standing up straighter, I guess it can do that. So there we go. That was a good thing that I popped that off. So because there's not just a ball peg port in there for the head, you can get that head onto different spots within that spot, but then you kind of have to take it off and pop it back in again. Oh, so that's pretty cool. That's a little bit better than, you know, what I had talked about, kind of getting it to stand straight up. Anyway, full rotation in that head. You can kind of bring it out a little bit for some kind of pivot and things. So typical owl will be able to turn their head back, right? Kind of weird, but you get that much motion in there. There is the butterfly joint, as you can see. It's not a huge range of motion, but there just is some there, as you can see there. The shoulder you can get to go out and kind of up a little bit. This feather piece is kind of a floating piece there. It does move with that shoulder there as well, and then you just kind of have to make sure you got to get it back in place. There is no bicep swivel. There is a single jointed elbow, which does technically have the swivel in there, but the bend at the elbow is not a whole lot, as you can see. That is the bend, and then straight out. So it's not a whole lot, and those feathers really hit the back of the bicep there as well. The torso rocker, so tilting to the right, tilting to the left, as you can see, is quite a bit. Going back is not really a whole lot, but coming forward is a fair amount. It does smooth out a little bit in the sculpt, unfortunately. There is swivel in there also. The legs, you can get to go out that much. The legs kick forward very, very high, and almost, can you do like a full rotation in there? You can do a full rotation in those legs, so that is pretty good, and it's necessary when getting into a bear pose and then standing up straight. But the knee you can get straight on out, and you can bend there a little bit less than 90 degrees. There is an ankle ball in there, but it doesn't really allow for any kind of swivel, unfortunately. There is some hinge, but it's difficult to move because the feathers come down so far and just doesn't allow for a whole lot of motion for that ankle. But just know that there is some swivel, not really any. The pivot is it's there to function as a pivot, but you don't really get any motion out of it. The hands / feet paws, the open clawed hands are, again, I'm in the standing pose. There is a hinge in there, but you don't get a lot of range of motion in that hinge. As you can see, it's just not a whole lot. Now the foot ones, they have a hinge in there as well, but again, there's not a lot of clearance in there, so you don't get a whole lot of movement on those hinges. So that's why I kind of have the two, so you can see that there is some motion, but just not a whole lot. There aren't a whole lot of bear action figures, so here's the Marvel Legends Build-A-Bear Ursa Major. A lot of good paintwork on this Ursa Major figure that I don't know if I ever really appreciated at the time. But man, compared to the Owlbear, where we do get some paint on the feathers and things, over the whole figure we don't get any kind of shading or anything, whereas the Owlbear really does. And what that does is it helps bring out the details of the fur sculpt work on this guy. It just looks really awesome. The Owlbear unfortunately doesn't get that. I mean, yes, the color in the feathers is cool, but if there was some kind of shading kind of throughout, would have been even better. So paintwork wise, you know, it just doesn't hold up, but it is much bigger than the Ursa Major figure. So as big as the Ursa Major figure is, the OWLBEAR Doric is a lot larger. In terms of height, you know, if you get, you know, Doric to stand up completely straight, definitely a lot more taller than Ursa Major, as you can see, and then just body size wise is a lot bigger, heavier even. So there is the comparison with another bear, the only other bear figure that I have to show you guys. Okay, so for some additional side-by-side comparisons, here we have the only other Dungeons and Dragons movie figures that I have. We have the Paladin Zinc, the Druid Doric, which is again same character, just I was gonna say human form, Druid form, and then Owlbear form, and then we have Edgin here. So movie figures are looking pretty good. I still have not gotten, you know, the Wave 1 ones at all. I don't know if I ever will. If I find them cheap enough, I'm sure I will. That way I can have all the figures. I wouldn't typically get action figures from a whole other line, but I really enjoyed this movie, like surprisingly so. I had zero expectations going in. A lot of people were saying that it was really good, so I went and checked it out. I had a blast with my kids. They enjoyed it, so I was like, you know what? Let me get some of these figures. The big selling point was the Owlbear was just super awesome in the movie, and then seeing an action figure, I'm like, how cool is that? But I can't just get the Owlbear, can I? Gotta have some character just to kind of tie it with. But not only just characters of in action figures, I did get something else which you guys may have seen on this channel already, but let's see a comparison with that. Okay, and for a final comparison, here we have, oh, Zinc, you bastard, why don't you ever stand up? I'm going to throw him back here. He pisses me off because he doesn't like to stand up. But here, the Owlbear, we have in kind of the bear stance, so you could really see, again, the size difference and how large the bear is compared to, you know, one of the Dungeons & Dragons movie figures. So it's crazy to think that Doric, it is the same character. She can, you know, obviously grow in size, shrink in size when transforming, but just pretty awesome. But you guys let me know down in the comments below, what did you think of the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie? What do you think of any of these action figures if you have them? Or what do you think of this Owlbear? Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching.